draft guys to help you out? And
Yes.
What's been your impression of him, and take us through the process of like what you saw beforehand?
Yeah, I think first of all, since Abdul's been here, he's worked extremely hard. He wants to be great, and the way he's operated reflects that. And it's a pretty easy evaluation when you start watching his film. To me, the thing that jumps off the tape right away is just his ability to finish, and sometimes that can be, as a coach, a hard thing to teach, and he has it, and it was pretty obvious early on.
What is it like? What is it about him that makes him a good finisher?
I think there's some mentality behind that. There's skill set, obviously, to have flexibility to dip through edges, strength to power through edges, to power through blockers, and then to have some length to wrap and finish on the quarterback. But a lot of times it's a mentality thing, and he has it, and I think it's pretty apparent on his film, seeing that.
You've obviously studied him a lot leading into the draft, right? Now that you got him in the building, is there anything that I didn't know about this, or this is a little better than I thought, or maybe this needs more work than I thought?
I think overall, the traits are pretty much similar to what the tape showed. It's just, refining the technique in the run and pass. So I think moving forward, when we get the pads on and take steps towards practicing, like real NFL football with pads on, that'll be the test, is to see where his technique is at. But in terms of the traits, they're pretty much as advertised, and they're pretty good.
I mean, he could stand out here like yesterday, where the offensive lineman can't really put his hands on him. I mean, there's no stopping it, and because of his raw speed, it seems like he can really be in the backfield at any time. Is that also the part that you're looking forward to once the pads get on, that there is such a part of his game that is probably more refined than you would expect a guy who's only played 1 year at defensive end at an edge spot?
Yeah, I think the that part of the refinement really is just kind of in his natural feel for the game, natural feel as a rusher. That can be hard to coach at times. He has it. I think you see that here. It's not always transferable this time of year with no pads on. When the pads do come on, obviously that's real football. But you can get a glimpse out here, depending on the rush or the situation, how the tackle's set. Like if it was going to be a speed, edge rush based on the tackle set, and they take it and work hands, that's transferable. But you're not getting any power rush work out here. We can't, attack the body and work that type of rush. So that will remain to be seen once we get the pads on, for sure.
What do you think about how to best get them all on? Right, you have 3 guys that are high-end players now at that spot.
Yeah.
From your perspective, how do you sort of make it work with all 3?
I think you start out with, we got to have a bread and butter. We're going to have 2 guys on the field as our base starting point, and they're just going to rotate, which is a good thing. You got 3 really good dominant level players that can rotate, so that's good. And then from there, there's a lot of ways you can get all 3 of them out there. We'll let that remain to be seen. But I think the sweet spot for us as coaches and them as players is just keeping it efficient to where they're still maximized, they're doing what they're good at, and it's not overload where it's too much where we're slowing them down, but also having a schematic advantage to where we're taxing the offense with the kind of looks and alignments that we can get into.
Is he in your room all the time? Because he also is an interior guy. He hasn't done that a lot at Penn State.
He is in my room full time.
Full time.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that interior stuff translate?
There's a little bit difference, different in terms of how they approach the blockers. When you're rushing on the edge, they're a little more on the edge. Rushing on the inside, they got to clear a little bit more of the body, but we train a bunch of different techniques in our individual, and there's some transfer to even what we work when we're working edge moves, and then when we transition them inside, there's some carryover there, but there's some other things that we have to work, and we have, and we will.
So you're just not going to let him out of the room, basically, right?
That's right. Well, I mean, of
you
course
just lock the door and he's not leaving your room.
I want all the good players,
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. But our whole front works together all the time. Whether it's meetings or drills or working group, rush lane type assignment, type thing. So it's all hands on deck all the time with the entire staff and players. Like D linemen are talking to them about some of their experience in there. So that's all been good.
And then one thing about the finishing, there's a physical aspect of that, a mental aspect. Is there also kind of a tenacity or meanness or toughness or aggression it's in him?
A lot of times it's the mentality over the physical ability, and you see that, and that's what he has, and he has elite physical traits. So, he's got the mentality to finish, the traits to finish. And that's what you saw, at least in my opinion, on his college film, and that's what we expect to see here.
What does that mean, mentality to finish? I mean,
it's kind of those words that you said: focus, intent, nastiness, grit, grind, all those things. However you want to qualify it, I guess. But his mindset is elite as a finisher.
Brandon Brown had said that during the evaluation process, when you get a guy like Abdul and you're looking at him and breaking him down, that it was important for the scouting staff and the coaching staff to kind of, explore the possibilities before you even had him in the building, before you had him. How exciting was that for you just to think about it? Some of the coaches, like talking to Shea Tierney yesterday, like he said, you put so much in the draft process and then you don't get the guy, you're like, oh. But how exciting was that to think about the possibilities, to come up with them, and then to have him walk through the doors and know, I got this guy now and I can work with him?
Yeah, it was really exciting. Spent a lot of time with him in the draft process. Obviously, started to get my hopes up a little bit as the process went on. And then on draft night, when Jacksonville traded, I got a little nervous. That was a little bit of a curveball. But, yeah, I mean, every exposure I had to him, you just feel the passion. You feel the mentality for the game. He's smart. He works, So, yeah, it's hard not to get attached to, a guy like that or those traits or qualities about a person. So I definitely got excited about the possibility. Anything can happen on draft night. We're the third pick. Who knows what would have happened in the first two? But my fingers were crossed. And then when he got here, obviously it was ecstatic, and it's been a great start so far. Yeah, the versatility will factor in a lot. We've got a lot of different body types, a lot of different skill sets, and it can only add to those options. And we'll be as creative as we can be. There's no doubt. Not like I said a minute ago, the sweet spot for us coaches is making it efficient. We can't do too much where guys slow down because they're thinking. We got to find the sweet spot of how can we tax the opponent, but also let our guys play fast. And we'll continue to identify that. We'll test some things in training camp and keep working through it until the season starts. But week one, we should have the plan identified so they can go out there and do what they do best.
How does year two with the Giants help you kind of establish that?
Big time. I mean, year two relationships are stronger. Year two understanding of the defense is stronger with Burns and Thibodeau, the guys that played the most last year. Coming back this year, I can already see a difference in them, and how they've been practicing, their level of understanding of the defense, and then also because they have that foundational understanding and requisite, not mastery, but understanding of what's going on, we can now add more things to the plate, which in any year would have been a big deal. But now this year, when you add Abdul, you add Chauncey, and we have more opportunities to be versatile and multiple, it pays off that they have that year two understanding from our baseline of what we put in last year.
They got to be hungry to learn, and in this league, it's more for D linemen. It's more than about talent, right? You have to be a technician. You got to have a quest to master your technique. That's what makes you play as a D lineman long in this league. If you're just basing your game off of I got great talent, it's going to catch up to you, and you're not going to be around very long. And so they hear that message from the time they walk in the room. And so to have a guy like Dex sitting in the room, that they could see what he became once I got here, because he became a great technician, and that took his God-given talent to another level. That makes it easier for me to sell that to these guys, is that you got to work hard to be great at becoming a technician and mastering your craft.
We're not seeing Darius on the field right now, but what are your thoughts on him so far as how he's working and how he's learning?
He's done a great job in the classroom. I think his age helps him. He's mature. He's smart. The times that I did have him on the field during my individual period, you can see that he's long, explosive. He's quick. He's a smooth athlete. And so now I just have to see, once we get him on the field, can he take what he learns and then apply it on the field, and that's what we'll see when we come back.
I know Abdul is in the other room, right? I asked Charlie, does he ever go to your room? He said, no, he's in my room. I think he wants to lock the door and not let him out of his room. But he is going to be an interior pass rusher at times. So how does that work with you, and do you get to get your hands on him, so to speak, in some capacity?
Yeah, when we get to third down and we do the rush package, the whole group meets together. So we're all on the same page, and I run those meetings, right? So once he comes in and he's rushing inside with me, then that's when I work with him on our mentality in there, what's our technique, how we rush in there, how he reads off the other guys from the inside to the outside. So, yeah, I do get a chance to work with him.
What have you seen? I mean, there's no pads, I get it. And for 2 years at Penn State, he was an interior guy. What do you see from his as an innate talent? And, what do you think he can do to that?
Well, I think he's explosive. He's quick. He's Sutton. Okay, but I think the thing that's unique in him, when they had me look at him and evaluate him before the draft, is he has an uncanny ability to feel how to win at the top of the rush, right? A lot of guys blow the rush when they get to the top of the rush. A lot of guys are quick, a lot of guys are explosive, a lot of guys can go edge to edge, but when they get to the top of the rush, they become mechanical. And as a coach, it takes guys 2, 3, 4 years to figure that out, right? Well, he was born with that. That's the thing that he was born with, that just naturally when he gets to the top of the rush, he has a feel of where to go. And I think that's the thing that makes him unique.
Well, what percentage of players would have that?
I think it's not very many. No. And that's the reason why, guy comes in as a rookie, it takes him 2 or 3 years to all of a sudden become a guy. The only guy I've had in my 24 seasons was Elvis Dumervil when we drafted him in Denver. And Elvis was 5'11", you know what I mean? But 34 arms, but Elvis had 90-something sacks out of high school. The NCAA record coming out of Louisville, right? But everybody dropped him in the draft because he was, 5'11" and ran 4'9". But I'm watching him on tape and I'm like, this dude knows how to win at the top of the rush. And I hadn't seen that on tape until I saw.
It's a long stretch.
Yeah, until I saw.
By top of the rush, you mean basically when there's contact?
Yeah. When we get to the part where there's combat between me and you, okay, right. A lot of guys blow their rush at that time because, hey, I may have your hands, okay, but being able to feel where your body is. Okay, your head's outside. I'm finishing inside, right? Your head's inside. I got the edge. I can go. You know what I mean? He's sitting soft. Go to power. He's sitting firm. Bend around the corner. Well, there's a lot of stuff, right? Well, it takes drill after drill after drill after drill to get a guy to feel that. This dude was born with that, and and a lot of guys. Most guys don't have that.
But I figure since you're here and we can talk about these DBs you got now, just first of all for you, I guess, you arrive here, you get Debo, you get Holland. Just kind of what are they bringing to this group just from what you've seen of them so far?
You have leadership first. Let's start there. Guys who have done it and done it at a real high level. So that's been really, really good, both in the classroom and on the field, and in the locker room. What a lot of people fail to realize is that voice that echoes the coaches. And those guys seen a lot of football, the good and the bad, and how to get to where we want to get to. Those are 2 great tools to have.
And then with this group, obviously, what have you seen so far with Deonte Banks, just getting to know him a little bit more?
Coming in, he's been focused. That was the main thing. He's been focused, working on his craft, understanding that right now is a competition, how to get better. All those small things like leaning on the Debo and those guys, like to really how to do it. And that's really it. And you watch them, you watch a Debo, you see those two like picturing in the meeting room, the conversation, like I said, that happens, that even if a coach is going over something, they having that dialogue on the way to meeting, leaving the meeting. So just gaining that experience that needs to be there for a young guy.
With that focus, he was a guy last year that his effort was questioned a couple times. What have you seen from that standpoint this sprint?
He's been locked in, man. That's the thing. Like, he's been locked in. That's the good part, and that was the challenge to the entire room. Not just him, just the challenge to the entire room on what are we going to stand for. The things that we can control is intent, effort, and attitude. And those things that we can control. We can't always control the outcome, but we can control those things. So just the intent with the group, so he's been a lot better at it.
What's most important to get the best out of? We've seen flashes from him, but what's most important to get the best out of him, consistently?
I would say this within group. Like, my experience has shown, man, with the group, even from me playing, being detailed, being consistent, which is a real hard talent to master. How do you do that down in and down out on game day? You start it right here on the practice field. We started, and from the first good morning when we walk in the meeting room. We started in, it's the attitude and the intent that you walk around with daily. That's the main consistency of that part. That is where you get the best of each player and each coach. So that's really what we really focus on, honestly.
When you have interchangeable safeties that you trust, both guys can do everything you need from a safety. How does that open up windows for you guys to disguise more, to really try to confuse offenses because they can't figure out roles based on what the guys can do?
That's been really interesting, man. Like, just to watch, and being around, Newman, you guys know him, and Holland, that's a sponge from that perspective, being able to now go out and we can be interchangeable. You now give just like offense, like, if you have a 1 and a 2, it makes your offense a whole lot better. Same thing defensively. We have guys that are interchangeable, and now we can put ourselves in positions where we can disguise a little bit more on the defensive end and not give our hand to the offense.
This was, a young group last year. How important is it getting veterans in like Holland and Adebo, guys who have that experience?
I would say this. From the very first meeting that we had, when you watch these guys come in and the group being young, I started the Legion Boom with Chris Richard, so we were young. We understand where it is and the intent that needs to be there. And we're not talking about 2 older guys. Like, we're talking about veterans that have experience, but they're young too, which is cool for the group, because now it's not too far-fetched on what work looks like, what the intent looks like. What do I do when I leave the meeting room, taking care of my body, my mind, my intent? So having those tools of understanding now, like I said, echoing our message. And that's really the key. Like, it's no real downtime. And the main thing, honestly, is really accountability. Being able to sit there and look at the next man and know that I gave him everything that I had to make sure that I get my job done so that he can do his. And that's really, honestly, what those guys brought. And very, very grateful to have them.
How do you view that corner spot opposite Paulson? Because we've seen him and Cordell obviously being rotating with the 1s and the 2s all spring.
I said something to somebody asked me when I was just talking about when we started the Legion of Boom, of being around talented guys. That's the cool part about where we are right now. You got older guys, and when I say older, we talking about Adebo, who's in his 5th year. Like, he's right where we were in Seattle. So it's like, with that being said, you have everyone eager and fighting and to try to get better, to be accountable, because that's really where we go back to. What is the standard? And when you have a standard, that's really what everybody try to live to. It's going to be here's and there's, and it's going to be ups and downs and growing pains, but when we live to the standard of being accountable, man, I'm excited about this group.
You mentioned Deontay was locked in. Have you seen him be accountable as well, this spring?
That's awesome. It's been awesome, man, just watching that part of it. And it's not just coming from the coach. It's coming from each player. Like, locked in, knowing what's going on, able to now take a nugget from Jeff, take a nugget from Adebo. Holland might tell somebody something. So just watching the maturation process of how we're trying to be accountable to each other. And he's doing exactly that. Mentoring in between, getting mentored. Like, that's the most important part.
But that's the type of young man he is, and that brings the leadership that we need in the back end, and excited about it. Excited to see what he's going to do.
He's coming off a pretty serious injury. Right. Do you see anything from that? Like, does he have to do special maintenance? Like, because it would be easy to, take it like the spring. We see him out there every day, and it's like, wow,
He has not shown anything from that. Like, every day he takes care of his body. He's probably out here right now. Yeah, he is out here right now, as a matter of fact, doing the small things. And he understands. And the great thing he's just that approach. He's brought energy. He talks about just self-talk. He talks about just the maintenance, and he's charismatic and all those fun things, but he's a true pro. And that's what we need right now, guys doing the small things, doing the little things on a daily basis. And the preparation is what it is. And he understands that he's coming back from an injury that, most people, it takes a little time, but he's dedicating the time to make sure physically and mentally that he's doing the right things right now.
How are you seeing that? Sorry.
Go ahead. Okay.
In the young room, like, it's a pretty young room with him coming in and the leadership being important. I guess what the younger guys are already kind of taking from him, especially Tay and Cordell.
Well, that's the thing. Like, before practice, you see guys coming out here trying to do some things, whether it's press work, whether it's footwork drills, or whatever it may be. More guys in the weight room just getting their body loose and taking care of their bodies, and that's what a true pro does. You just don't show up, and great athletes come out, they still prepare. but he comes out and he's preparing every day, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And that's part of the game that's helped those guys understand, listen, you can't just show up every day and think that it's going to, just because you put a uniform on, I'm come out and perform well. And I think that's been the key for the young guys to see his preparation, his mental focus, and his detail about what he's doing.
What about the
Deontay,
newest of
then?
those? I was just going to say, what about the newest of those guys, Corey?
Oh, well, Corey's learning as well. Like, Corey sees them, so we've kind of arranged them in a way that you have the mentorship, and those guys see it. Corey's out here as well. He's doing his technique things, and so the more we do that, the more consistent. The biggest thing for any DB is consistency. It's talent. There's obviously, if they made it to this level, there's a talent level, but it's consistency. And I think our group as a room, I think that's what we're all trying to build right now. It's consistency, and then there's a trust factor. And trust comes with consistency. They got to trust me. They got to trust him if he's doing the right things, but it comes with consistency. I got to be the same person every day. M has to be the same person every day, and that consistency has to show up, and I think that's what Adebo brings, with that consistency of how he approaches the game.
On that topic, then, what have you seen from Tay Banks, mindset-wise? I think if, I haven't asked him specifically, but if you ask him about last season, he'd be disappointed with how everything kind of turned out last season. What have you seen in that regard? I'm sure you've heard about it, talked about it with him. So, what have you seen from him mindset-wise now?
I think obviously last season's last season. I wasn't here, but his mindset has been a little different this year as well. Like, we sit in the meeting room, he's asking questions, he's actually presented to the group as well. The small details, like I said, those are the things that he needs to be challenged on, the small details. And I think we as a group, Marquand is demanding it from the entire group, the accountability from one another, and that's what we're trying to build more or less than anything else, the accountability, the group setting between the two. But his approach has been different this
when you arrive here, he's a former first-round pick, you know his physical attributes, you know his rookie year, you know what he happened last year. I mean, how do you approach that with him, and is there anything about him that is different than what you might have anticipated?
From an athletic standpoint?
From any standpoint.
No, he's athletically gifted. So that's the tools are there. But his approach, he just needs to be detailed about what he's doing. And as a group, that's what we're doing. We're trying to be detailed about everything we're doing. And again, that comes from the coaches, that comes from the players, that comes from accountability. But I think his focus has been there this game.
Do you think you can? Some coaches don't want to say, I don't want to coach effort. I don't want to coach effort.
Okay.
I mean, do you think you need to coach effort?
No, you shouldn't have to coach effort. He's at this level for a reason. He's earned the right to be here. But now it's time for him to go and step up and make that next step. And I think he's done an amazing job just learning what we're trying to do. We've implemented, so he's learning us. He's learning the coaches, he's learning our styles, he's learning me, but he's done an amazing job of accepting those responsibilities. But again, it all starts with the room as itself. And I think the guys in the room have made each other accountable for what they're doing.